Technology, diversity, wine, the redwoods, and everything in between. Welcome to the Northern California Bay Area, and one show takes you inside the real estate that makes it all happen. This is By the Bay.
Hey everyone, welcome back to By the Bay. I'm your host, Dan Anchetta, and today we have a solo episode with just me. And what I want to talk about today is, well, first I want to say thanks for being here. It's been a really exciting journey as we've put the studio back together. I'm not sure if you following us on all the social channels, but our studio was broken into a few weeks ago, and now we've been able to put everything back together, replace the equipment that was stolen, and we're back to full operation. So I don't think that we missed any episodes, but we did have some technical difficulties as we had to order some more stuff and put the studio back together. So thanks for bearing with us through that. And today what I wanted to talk about was giving a kind of 6 months through the year recap on what's going on in Bay Area real estate, and also to check in because I know there's a lot of real estate professionals who watch this, and for those who have reached out to me and sent a message saying, hey, appreciate the show and thanks for doing it. Those messages are really appreciated. So first, what I want to start off with was a 6 month check-in as we've kind of gotten halfway through the year. Earlier this year, we did a goal setting and kind of business planning discussion. And so what I want to start with is, here we are 6 months through the year, and the economy and the market aren't doing exactly what we had hoped or thought that they would be doing. And I wanted just to ask you, how are you tracking your goals? Are you looking at your numbers on a monthly basis to see where you're tracking year to date? And what's stopping you from pulling out all the stops and making it happen for the rest of the year? I know that for here internally at Sequence Mortgage, we're looking at numbers every month to see how every loan officer is doing, and then tracking back to the behaviors to see what they're doing on a daily basis, weekly basis, to make sure that they're having the right number of conversations, they're having the right kind of conversations, and doing a lot of coaching around what we're saying, how we're saying it, and how we're presenting ourselves to our referral partners and to our clients. So if you have not done so, I would encourage you to reflect back on the first 6 months of the year and ask yourself, if you are, one, are you on track? And if you are, congratulations. And if you're not, why not? And what is going on in your business, in your life, in your day-to-day activity that might be holding you back from hitting those big lofty goals? So, in thinking about that, it's a number of, what's our mindset? Are we in a place where we're blaming the market? Rates are high. Today as we're recording this, we're waiting for Fed minutes to come out, and rates are kind of teetering right on a high in the last 6 months. That said, it's Wednesday morning, and we as a company today have 6 new contracts, meaning we're out there doing the right things. We're out there having the right conversations. And even though rates are high, we're having those rate conversations with our clients proactively, and it's not stopping them from getting into contract, buying houses, and proceeding with life despite rates being higher than any of us would really like. So are we in a mindset where we are understanding the market, or are we using the market as an excuse for why we're not meeting our goals? So just kind of do a gut check, and that might be a hard conversation to have. And if you need to have that with someone else, I really encourage people to hire coaches, even though the market is slower than we'd like, and it's down, and we're probably all making less money this year than we have in years past. It's the perfect time to be investing in a business coach that can help you navigate these waters and make sure that you're doing the daily activities, weekly activities to hit those big, hairy, audacious goals as we set earlier in the year. So I would encourage you to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, okay, first half of the year is done. What am I going to do in the second half of the year to meet the numbers, to hit the goals, and to build your business and build your life in the way that you have planned in 2023. The market continues to be hard, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change for the foreseeable future. I know some optimists were saying that by the end of the summer 2023 that we'd see rates lower and that we would be kind of back in the heyday of better interest rates and buyers falling out of the sky, and it was going to be, a great time. It doesn't look like that's going to happen in the short term. I think that there's a lot of economic data and things that need to happen with the way that the Fed balance sheet is, not to get too technical, but just with the amount of money that's in circulation that needs to work its way through the system before we get that reprieve in interest rates. But it's not stopping people from buying houses. So if you are, a home buyer out there, my recommendation, I would encourage you to still, if it's in your plan to buy a home, it's still a good time to buy because there's less and less competition. And we're in a lull right now where many people are taking a step back and not pursuing their next home or their first home because of all of the negative news about rates are too high, rates are too this, rates are too that. And we're seeing less competition on every property that our clients are making offers on. So there's still competitive bids. We're still seeing, multiple offers on houses, but we're not seeing the number and the velocity of housing prices increase that we saw in years past. So, the strategy of getting in the market now and looking at a refinance opportunity in the future is still very valid. We're still seeing a lot of temporary rate buy downs, which helps with affordability in the near term and looks for opportunities in the future to be able to improve your interest rate and therefore your overall payment. Most of our clients are looking at those opportunities. Not all of them are able to do so because it does require a seller credit to finance the temporary rate buy down, and that's not always possible. But right now, I think we're in actually a pretty good spot for home buyers, and that's obviously in context and not necessarily not saying that's ideal and perfect, but it is summertime. We're seeing inventory pick up. We're seeing housing prices leveling out, if not declining in some markets, not big declines in the local Bay Area market, but definitely plateauing a bit. And we are also seeing fewer buyers out there, like I said, and that's going to change in the near future because of our favorite down payment assistance program. That is the California Dream for All program is coming back. The fiscal year for the state of California runs from July 1st to June 30th. So we're in a new budget and new fiscal year for the state. And there is a $200 million allocation for the down payment assistance program. As a reminder, it's the 20% down shared appreciation loan with the state of California, where basically they'll give you a 20% down payment in the form of a second loan that requires no monthly payment. And when you sell the house or upon maturity, you have to split the equity that you've gained in the home back with the state, and then they'll reinvest those dollars on the next generation of home buyers. Those dollars went away in I think 8 calendar days when those funds were available last fiscal year, which was in the March-April timeframe. And now they're going to be changing the rules. We don't know exactly who's going to qualify for that, but I think they understood, the state and Cal HFA, who is the organization who is tasked with managing those dollars. They have realized that they need to be more restrictive on who can use the funds. And it's actually really interesting because there's another down payment assistance program locally in Sonoma County that has too strict of guidelines, and very few people can qualify for that program. So we're kind of like needing to find that Goldilocks somewhere in the middle, and hopefully both of those programs will be able to figure that out. But the California Dream program is coming back, and when we saw that, kind of took the internet by storm, and everyone on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook were talking about this program, and buyers just came out of everywhere. And so if it's in your plan to buy a home and you're not going to use the down payment assistance program, you're in a great spot right now because of the less competition. But I would warn you and encourage you to take action sooner than later before the California Dream buyers hit the market, and they are going to be everywhere. That's a really, really popular program. And I think what we're going to see happen is they're going to restrict the income, how much income you can earn every year to still qualify for the DREAM program, and potentially also restrict the assets that you're allowed to have, which is typical for some other down payment assistance programs. And basically that levels a playing field where, we were seeing, buyers in some of the hot markets that were buying $2 million houses and getting 20% from the state, so $400,000 to buy a $2 million house, and then putting down, $800,000 out of their own pocket to afford to afford the rest of the home, and taking a relatively small first mortgage. I don't think that's the intent, is to help people buy $2 million houses and putting down $800,000 out of their own pocket to make their housing more affordable. And I think that those types of scenarios were discovered as that program got rolled out, and we'll see those not really be allowed. On the other side of the coin, locally here in Sonoma County, California, Burbank Housing received a grant for $14 million from the state of California to do an affordable housing program only for Sonoma County residents, which is really cool. I did the math, and they have limits on. It's based off of the number of individuals in your household, including children. And so for people with 4 to 5 people in their household, there's a 40% debt to income ratio maximum and a 45% total. So that's, I should say, 40% housing ratio maximum and 45% total debt to income ratio maximum, which is not that important. But the point is that when you back into those numbers based off of the income maximum, which is 80% of the area median income, there are, and so assuming you have 4 to 5 people in your household, I looked on Zillow or Redfin or somewhere, for 3-bedroom residences in Sonoma County that would meet that requirement, basically backing into the total payment that would be allowed given the income limitation. And there were 5 total homes in Sonoma County that would work. All of them were condos, and they had 3 or more bedrooms to accommodate a 4 to 5 person household. And I'm not sure how we're going to deploy $14 million when there's such limited capacity. Well, I should say limited opportunity for those funds to actually be used. So kind of the opposite problem of the California DREAM program, where that the Burbank Housing program, which I talked to the rep at Burbank Housing, and I'm going to try to get them on the podcast. It's not their guidelines. The state of California gave them these guidelines, and those metrics and those ratio maximums might work in other markets. They just don't work in this market, and might work in Fresno, might work in Bakersfield or something like that, but doesn't work here. And so they're kind of beholden to what the state tells them to do with those dollars, and they understand that it doesn't really work. So we're getting a lot of interest in the Burbank Housing program, which is great because those buyers are likely going to wind up in a pool of individuals looking to use the California DREAM program when we get those guidelines. So all that to be said, there are a lot of initiatives right now in local governments, state governments, cities, states, counties that are looking at the housing crisis that we're in with the affordability crisis that we're experiencing. And they're looking for opportunities to deploy funds that they collected through tax revenue to support affordable housing for low and moderate income households. Those programs are great. I'm very encouraged by them, especially if there's an equity share or some type of resale restriction that requires kind of like a pay it forward mentality. But it has to be done in a way that actually works with the economics in the area that you're deploying the funds. So the issue with the California DREAM program is that it applies to the entire state. And you have to set guidelines that are broad enough that they work kind of for everybody. And that means that a lot of people were able to qualify, and those funds may not have been used. I don't know for sure. I haven't seen the data, but my speculation is that those funds were used, which is good that they were used, but they didn't necessarily go to the individuals with the highest need, which may not actually be solving the problem. And the issue with the Burbank housing program, again, not their guidelines, state of California guidelines, and Burbank is a great organization, is that they're too restrictive and they don't really meet the needs of the community. So the context of this is that these programs are necessary because if we want to have a vibrant economy, we need to have all different individuals from the spectrum of income, and we need people to be in the workforce that are working in the service industry and working in manufacturing and working in all these different things that make our local economy tick. And it can't just be people who make $250,000 a year that can afford to live in this area. So these programs are necessary. We're big supporters of them, but we just want to make sure that they're rolled out correctly and rolled out in a way that is actually impactful to those individuals that need the help and need that benefit. Okay, so let's change gears and just kind of talk about overall economy and what's going on. So mortgage-backed securities right now, as we're speaking. So just quick mortgage lesson: when we make a mortgage, we're making a 30-year commitment from typically 30 years. There's other varieties, but let's just say, argument's sake, it's a 30-year commitment to make monthly payments to repay the debt to the bank so you can buy this home. And what those dollars wind up doing, when we make a loan, the commitment of that stream of cash flow is turned into a security and is combined with a bunch of other mortgages that then become a mortgage-backed security so that we can basically get our money back that we lend out, that we actually wire to the title company, and they give to the seller or to the seller's bank, whatever that situation is. But so that we can recycle those dollars and lend out those dollars again to the next clients or the clients the following month. The mortgage-backed security is a combination of a bunch of mortgages that then investors buy, and those initial dollars that are used to fund the actual mortgage loan are given back to the mortgage bank so they can lend them out again. And that's how we maintain liquidity in the market. For the last number of years, the demand for mortgages has exceeded, the supply of mortgage-backed securities. So what is actually the consumer is taking out, we're increasing the supply, has exceeded the demand of the investors. So governments have stepped in, primarily the U.S. Fed. They bought up a ton of mortgage-backed securities. They have a huge balance sheet, and they did that so that these mortgage banks and the banking institutions in general would have the liquidity so that they don't have a run on the bank and run out of money and cause a banking crisis. So they bought all these mortgage-backed securities to make sure that banks had liquidity so they can continue business as usual and continue to fund business loans and do things like the COVID relief bills and all the other stuff that was going on at the time. So they're unwinding those balance sheets and they're trying to decrease the total assets that are held by the Fed, which is a good thing overall for the Fed to be doing. And the effect of that is that there is less demand from an investor standpoint for these mortgage-backed securities, and therefore the yields of those are going up. So that's been compounded with inflation being higher than the target of 2%, which is one of the Fed's mandates is to keep inflation in the 2% range. It's been exceeding that for over a year, and they are increasing interest rates to make sure that inflation doesn't get out of control. There's a saying that inflation kills democracies, and that's essentially that's one of the issues that we're dealing with, is trying to make sure that inflation doesn't get out of control so it crushes the economy and devalues the dollar and makes it really hard for for us to transact, and you don't have to take wheelbarrows of dollars to go buy a loaf of bread, which has happened in other countries in the past. Anyhow, so the context is that we are seeing that the Fed is continuing to fight inflation. That fight is a little chaotic, where we get good news one day, bad news the next. We'll see core inflation numbers lower than expectation, but then employment data higher than expected. So we're getting these mixed messages from the economy, which is probably normal because it's not a linear kind of predictable thing. It's going to go in fits and starts. But at this moment where we stand, we're seeing that we're at a high point in the 10-year Treasury with uncertainty about what the Fed is going to do next. And uncertainty leads investors to increase their demand for return. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. So they're looking at the uncertainty in the market and they're saying, hey, if we're going to continue to invest, we need to make more money. We need to have a higher return to be okay with the amount of risk that we're taking on. So all of these things combined, which is a lot of information just threw at you, is combining to have high mortgage rates. And when these down payment assistance programs kick in these local economies in California and the Bay Area, we're going to see higher demand, which is going to drive up prices, which makes the affordability crisis even worse. So at some point, something's got to give. I'm not sure exactly what that is right now. Most likely it's going to be that the Fed will have to continue to increase rates to fight inflation, to slow down the job market and slow down the economy. And eventually they'll find what they call the terminal rate, which is the maximum rate in this economic cycle that will put the brakes fully on this economy and send us into a bit of a recession, which is a normal part of a cyclical system. So a recession is needed, in my opinion. It's necessary. How deep of a recession is up for interpretation. I don't think it has to be a terrible years-long recession, but we do need to have the economy slow down to get inflation under control, which will then help housing prices and slow things down to a point where they're more manageable and predictable, which, the predictability will give investors certainty and they'll be able to move forward with their investments with confidence. So wrapping up this 6-month update, so I'm trying to hit on a couple things here. One, if you're a real estate professional, take a look at those goals, make sure that you are on target, make the changes in your business, learn from what happened in the first 6 months of the year and double down on the things that work. Hire that coach you've been thinking about hiring, get that mentor, on the schedule that you know that you need to be talking to on a regular basis. Don't be afraid of those conversations. People do want to help you. So reach out and make it happen. And if you're a home buyer, really depending on where you are in the market, get your ducks in a row. There are opportunities out there and there will be an opportunity in the future, and this is my opinion, there will be an opportunity in the future to improve your interest rate, to lower your monthly payment and your overall interest expense for your home. But now is a great time to be buying because there is less competition, and there's a housing shortage. Demand is crazy high, but you might be in a lull for the next couple of months where rates are going to push people out of the market and these affordable housing programs are not available, and you might see opportunity to get into a home that otherwise you might have 10, 20 offers on, which was common for a couple of years, and to talk to a mortgage professional to get that figured out sooner than later. And really, I would just leave you with, check in if you're in the real estate side, check in with your partners. People I know a lot of folks that are having hard times right now. They got used to the easy money, the easy market, and they're struggling. I know some folks that haven't closed, realtors specifically, who haven't closed a loan or closed the transaction all year, some of them going back to last fall. So check in on your friends and make sure that you're doing everything you can to help them, protect your buyers. And if you if you need any help with your goal setting or anything like that, you can always reach out. I'm happy to chat. And I do appreciate you checking out the By the Bay podcast. And I think that's all I really had to say. So thanks for being here. And I appreciate you following us on all the social channels and liking and subscribing on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And if you have any topics that you want to cover in the second half of this year, that would be helpful. I would appreciate that feedback. You can always reach out to me on Instagram, and I'd be happy to have a conversation, and maybe I can pick up some topics to chat about in the last half. So thanks for being here on By the Bay, and appreciate you following the show, and have a great day.
Stay up to date with Bay Area real estate. Hit subscribe now if you haven't already. Did you enjoy this episode? We love reviews in the Apple Podcasts app. We'll read yours on the show. This is By the Bay.
London Ear Media.